Wretch. Noun, a miserable person, one who is profoundly unhappy or in great misfortune, a person who is base, despicable, and vile, one who is depressed, hopeless, seriously inadequate, and of very low quality. Hi there, I'm David Templeton, journalist and playwright, and that used to be me. A wretch, an outcast, an oddball, a black sheep. I was 8. I was geeky, skinny, socially awkward, and I played with puppets. Yeah, puppets. Nobody told me that if you're already not popular at school, walking around with puppets in your pockets does not help. But then, at the age of 11, I found Jesus. Yep, I got saved in a trailer in the 5th grade. And for a while there, it was kind of cool. Just me and Jesus and my puppets, singing Amazing Grace forwards and backwards, learning everything I could about crucifixion, waiting for my life to get better. But after a few years, I was still just lonely. And then, in high school, something big happened. I joined the Jesus Club. And what do you know? I suddenly had friends, believers, Jesus people, all of us teenagers. I became a teenage evangelical puppeteer. This was in the 1970s, at the beginning of the Southern California Jesus movement, back when Christians were still liberals. I was part of one of the greatest social movements of all time. It was great, or mostly great. And then it all started going to hell. Right under my nose, the Jesus movement became the religious right. I started asking a lot of questions, started noticing stuff that didn't add up. And the more I tried to be like Jesus, loving my fellow human beings, the less I fit in. Suddenly, I was a black sheep all over again. So I left. I walked away. And as I re-entered the real world, I knew that someday I'd have to find a way to tell the story of all the crazy, outrageous, and sometimes kind of beautiful things I saw and did between the time I was saved and the time I was saved from being saved. In 1983, after seeing Josh Kornbluth do his one-man show Haiku Tunnel, I decided, yeah, that's the way to tell this story, as a one-man show. And I knew exactly what I wanted to call it, Wretch Like Me. Okay, it took me 25 years to finally sit down and write it, but in 2009, I did, recreating my journey from black sheep to evangelical teenager and back to black sheep. The first performances of Wretch Like Me took place at the Glazer Center in Santa Rosa. Since then, I've performed the show for thousands of people, but from the very beginning, I've had an even bigger dream for Wretch Like Me, to someday take it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland. The largest theater festival in the world, the Edinburgh Fringe features literally thousands of performances over a 1-month period. It's where Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead had its first world premiere, and where the Reduced Shakespeare Company became an international hit. If your show is going places, Edinburgh is the place to find out how far it can go. Well, the good news is, I'm in. The Space UK, one of the Fringe's best presenters of festival shows, has accepted Wretch Like Me for the 2014 festival. This August, I'll be giving 14 performances over 16 days, performing at the historic Surgeons Hall Museum. And this is where you come in. I've raised enough money to secure the theater space and pay my entrance fees, but I still have to raise more than $10,000. All funds raised go toward paying the remaining rental fees, insurance costs and licensing, and of course, travel and lodging and all of that. And though Wretch Like Me is a one-man show, it's not a one-man operation. I'll need a team. A stage manager, a sound operator, and a full-time publicist at the very least, and all of us will be hitting the streets every day to hand out flyers, perform snippets of the show on the street, trying to convince people to choose Wretch Like Me ahead of all the other shows going on at the same time. Team Wretch has dreamed up all kinds of cool thank you gifts for contributing at different levels, from Wretch face buttons and black sheep finger puppets to t-shirts and tickets to stateside performances of Wretch, all the way up to dinner with myself and the show's director, Sherry Lee Miller, and a private performance of Wretch, which you can use as a fundraiser for your own cause or just for fun. And if you happen to be in Scotland in August, we'll get you into the show for free. If you can't help financially, you can help by telling people about this fundraising campaign, by sharing the Wretch Like Me website address, and by posting about Wretch Like Me on Facebook. It's been a long journey for that little kid and his puppets, a journey that still has meaning, because that story isn't just mine. The best part of doing Wretch Like Me is meeting the people afterwards who had the same experiences, who struggled to believe in themselves, who took a detour or two along the way to learning what I eventually learned, that everyone deserves to know they're loved by someone, and no one should ever be made to feel like a wretch.